All of those things need to be considered in your capacity. Just because you can do something doesn't mean you're meant to carry it. Just because you can and you know how to systemize it and you know how to create the time and you know how to work harder or later or you know how to grow it doesn't mean it's meant for this season. Hello and welcome to the Encourager Podcast, where we talk about real life and real systems so you can joyfully harmonize both home and work. I'm your host, Rebekah Scott. I'm a wife, mom, designer, coach, and lifelong systems thinker. And I help overwhelmed women build simple, sustainable rhythms that actually work for their real lives. Around here, we talk about priorities, pre-decisions, and practical tools that bring peace instead of pressure. Because you don't need more hustle, you need better systems and more grace. Today's episode is a good one. Hello, Encouragers. On this week's podcast, we're talking about aligning yourself before you accelerate. I already know I'm talking to a bunch of big doers, a bunch of accomplishers, a bunch of you guys already know how to get things done. You know how to set up programs and accelerate on them. But sometimes, most times, as I'm discovering, and I will share a couple of stories with you, we actually need to align before we accelerate. And I will explain. If you accelerate, you get things done. Before you align them, you don't get freedom, you get friction. God cares more about who and what you're aligned with than how fast you're moving. And boy, does this preach to me personally. Acceleration without alignment leads to burnout, not breakthrough. We think if we just go harder and harder and harder and get there, we'll get through the breakthrough. Like we're going so fast, we're going to break through it. But it doesn't, because as we keep going harder and harder, and if it was never aligned, we just end up gassing out and burning out. God often slows us down, not to punish us, but to realign us. And just because something is moving fast doesn't mean it's moving in the right direction. I have personally learned the hard way. This is not the same thing as progress. I have an example of a couple years back. I decided that I would be a guest on podcast. I knew this would be good to get my message out there of my coaching and my digital products, everything that's available on the encouragerpodcast.com. And I knew how to interview and I knew how to be interviewed. And I knew a couple of programs that would help me reach out to more podcasters and go ahead and book some interviews. Well, imagine that. I set a goal around it. I set a system around it. I dedicated the time and time blocked for it, and I got it done. I think my goal was 30, and I got to like 37 of them. But here's the thing. I totally accelerated that one. I knew exactly what to do, but it was never aligned. I never asked God what would be the thing that would move my Encourager brand in the direction I want it to go. What I did say, though, was, hey, I'm going to be on a bunch of podcasts. Would you just go ahead and bless it and get the message out there? But I didn't say, God, is this the direction you want me to go? And that was a key mistake in that. Now, there was nothing seriously wrong about it. I did enjoy it. I got better at being interviewed. I got better about my talking points for what my digital products and my coaching would be. I learned also that not everybody is good at podcasting. Like by the time I got to the end of it, I was like, what actually am I taking away from it? So it's not like it was bad, but it was definitely a time. I learned a lot about what it's like to run a service-based business, even though it wasn't a business, it was just being interviewed. But like I had client times that I had to be there, that I had to show up and record. So it was more appointment-based. And that is just not something that works very well with my energy levels when I'm also manufacturing. And I wasn't as in charge of the time when I would be interviewed. And that got to be a problem with my systems because I would have to stop in the middle of production, do the interview because that's what worked for them. All this to say, it flopped more or less. The podcasting world is weird. So all those interviews are out there and you could probably find them and listen to them. And I still think they would be beneficial, but it's not funneling in the right direction that I needed to go. It wasn't surrendering and asking God, what would be the biggest impact on my Encourager brand? And now I know through a lot of trial and error that is in fact the one-on-one coaching. We live in a culture that celebrates fast growth, big platforms, big amount of people in those platforms, more offers, and bigger teams because you can make a bigger impact. But no one talks about misalignment, exhaustion, even if the exhaustion is quiet and you don't want to admit it. We also don't talk about quiet resentment. This is actually never what I wanted. Or losing joy while quotations winning. Like we are winning, we're moving the needle, we're getting to the goal, like the 37 podcast. but we're losing joy in the process. There was another story in my RSD business, the purses and accessories, where I was working with some consultants that were made to grow the business. That was their entire agenda, and I knew it was good. And at the time, I thought it was a fit. And there was at one point when I was talking about zipper colors, and I was like, gosh, I wish there was more zipper colors in this color. I can't even remember what color I wanted, but I love the zipper drawer. It's my favorite drawer in the whole studio. I just feel so inspired when I look at all these colors. And I made this comment like, gosh, I wish I could determine the colors of the zippers. And this consultant looked at me and she said, oh, don't worry, honey. We're going to be owning that zipper company in no time. Pause. Like, wait, time out. What did you just say? She's like, you're going to own that zipper company and then you can decide whatever colors you want. I can remember a punch in my gut, and I believe your gut is your God organ, thinking, I don't want to own a zipper company so I can pick the colors. I'm doing what I want to do. And that was one of those first moments of like, wait, this is not fitting. Their need for speed and to get a bigger platform and a bigger website and even owning some of the supply companies was their plan. Not bad. That was, what I hired them to do is help me grow, but not my plan. And then at the very bottom of not, I think, what God wanted for me either. And so while it looked good on paper, it really wasn't aligning. And P.S., I do not own a zipper company and I do not get to determine the colors, but I still order from them and they still have lots of colors. I know that God prioritizes alignment before acceleration. He wants us to prioritize, okay, where's the alignment with Him? What is His plan for us? When we go into prayer and we talk about it, we ask Him for the vision. We see the little breadcrumbs around that are really leading to what we believe that we should be doing. He is prioritizing that before we are accelerating because we know how to accelerate, right? We do. We know how to push the gas down and systemize it and get going. But what He wants us to prioritize first is the alignment. And I think we can break alignment into 3 buckets. Number 1, alignment with God. Am I asking God what to do or just asking Him to bless what I've already decided? Remember, this is like from a couple episodes back. It's like telling God your vision, then asking Him to bless it versus asking Him what is the vision and then you aligning with that. And of course, the scripture verse from Proverbs 3:6, in all your ways acknowledge Him and He will make your paths straight. When we start and prioritize Him and acknowledge Him, He will make our paths straight. And a straight path is super easy to accelerate on. Hey, encouragers, hope you're enjoying this episode. We'll be right back after this short break. This episode of The Encourager is brought to you by Rebekah Scott Designs, where we create thoughtfully designed purses and accessories that support your real life, not just your outfit. Every bag is designed with intention, handcrafted right here in South Dakota, and built around the belief that beauty and function should work together. From custom fabrics and linings to leathers, zippers, and really cool features, you get to design a piece that truly fits your life. Visit designyourownbag.com to create your own custom bag and use code ENCOURAGER for $10 off your purchase. Number 2, alignment with season. Not every season is for scaling, hiring, expanding, adding. That's a lot of what the world wants us to do in every single season. Now, some seasons, absolutely. Every season, no. Some seasons are for pruning, simplifying, paying off, or repairing. And it might even be repairing relationships. This was really the year of 2025 for me, was really about pruning and simplifying my systems and figuring out for myself, what does growing this year look like, especially growing without striving? What is it going to look like to sustain sales, but not necessarily grow them this year? How can I go into prayer and do some simplification within this season? And number 3, alignment with capacity. Capacity includes emotional bandwidth, that you're really able to emotionally deal with everything. It might mean financial margin, that you do have the time and the finances to do that. Capacity also includes your family needs. Like, what is it that your family needs this year? And also your health. All of those things need to be considered in your capacity. Just because you can do something doesn't mean you're meant to carry it. Just because you can, and you know how to systemize it, and you know how to create the time, and you know how to work harder or later, or you know how to grow it, doesn't mean it's meant for this season. Overflow is holy. Overload is not. And what happens if we do accelerate without alignment? Well, we build things that we secretly resent later. We create systems that we can't sustain. That's the biggest thing. So like when I am creating systems, and especially for those that I coach, I'm making sure that it's something that they can sustain in the coming seasons, not just for the current season, and how to adjust it if a season gets a little bit heavier, be it family-wise or maybe it's professional-wise. And we confuse exhaustion with obedience. That's big. Like, well, of course I'm exhausted. I'm doing all this volunteering. I'm doing all this good work, and we're misaligning it. It's like we think we should be exhausted because we're being obedient. That is not necessarily the case. God never asks us to outrun our obedience. This story in the Bible is such a powerful story for what it really means to align before we accelerate. And imagine that. It's right there in our Bible. Isaiah 30:15. In repentance and rest is your salvation. In quietness and trust is your strength. What is the background story? Isaiah 30 happens during a time of national panic, okay? The kingdom of Judah is under threat from the rising superpower Assyria. Super bad people, okay? The fear is high, the pressure is insane, and the leaders feel like they must do something fast, right? Accelerate. Instead of seeking God first, Judah's leaders make a political move. They form an alliance with Egypt for military help. On paper, it looked smart. Spiritually, it was misaligned. Judah wasn't necessarily doing something wrong. However, he was accelerating without asking God. And God's frustration in Isaiah 30 is not that Judah wanted safety. That's human. The problem was they moved quickly without consulting God. They trusted visible strength over divine guidance. And they chose human solution over surrendered obedience, which personally, gosh, I always move to human solutions because I like to work that Rubik's Cube, and that's not fair. What if I surrendered obedience? Isaiah 31 sets the tone. Ah, stubborn children. Gosh, is this so real? Who carry out a plan, but not mine, and who make an alliance, but not of my spirit. That line alone preaches to us. They had acceleration. They lacked alignment. What did God actually want? Right in the middle of their frantic strategy, God offers a radical different path. He says, in returning and rest, you shall be saved. In quietness and in trust shall be your strength. Returning means repentance, turning back, realignment, coming back under God's direction. Rest, not laziness, not passivity. It's ceasing the frantic striving, stopping the panic-driven decisions, refusing fear-based movement. Stop the scramble. Quietness and trust, settled confidence, calm dependence, steady faith under pressure. God was offering them strength through stillness, which is the opposite of how most leaders respond under threat. I am guilty as charged. And the tragic turn from this, which is what we can learn from, is from Isaiah 30:15, and it finishes with this, but you were unwilling. This is huge. Judah did not fail because they lacked options. They failed because they refused alignment. And history shows the consequences. Their Egyptian alliance failed. Hello. Assyria still devastated the region. And their fast solution, their accelerated solution, did not save them. Gosh, that text is so stinking powerful and so easy to understand, even as you're listening to this podcast. But how can you go in prayer to actually implement it? Before you accelerate on anything, before you create a system, which I love, right? Before you do any of that, first ask God, what is it you're saying to me? How can I align? How can I be more obedient in this idea, in this plan, in this project, in this year, in this season ahead of me? God's invitation was not to try harder, move faster, or build bigger. It was to return, to rest, to trust, and be still enough to hear him. So I want you to ask yourself these 3 questions. Remember, when I record the podcast, I try to give you, in the first 10 minutes, something that you can either apply or think about so that you can start implementing these in your week as soon as possible. Ask yourself these 3 questions. Where am I rushing that God hasn't released me to run? He knows you can run. Oh man, does he know? He's equipped you, right? But where are you rushing right now that God hasn't released you yet? What feels heavy that once felt life-giving? And what would it look like to pause before you push? And real practically, use those 2 words together. What can I pause before I push? And if you feel yourself pushing, marry it with the word pausing, like, whoa, this feels, I'm pushing, I'm going to pause. Before you accelerate anything this year, I want you to pause and align one area of your life. So here's a couple of examples. Maybe it's one commitment that you need to release. Maybe it's one system that you need to simplify. Maybe it's one boundary that you need to reinforce. Or maybe it's one prayer to sit with longer. Those are a couple real practical things you can do to align before you accelerate. When alignment comes first, acceleration becomes purposeful, not frantic. And this is how you will keep your joy, you'll stay close to your people, and you'll build what lasts and with His blessing. And after all, that's what we want in the end anyways. I hope this has been encouraging. I hope you can really reflect on those 3 questions and that you'll be able to start really thinking through, how do I align before I accelerate? And then can we hold each other's hands? This is something that I actively have to practice myself. And if you found this message encouraging, would you please forward it to some of your friends that you feel like are pushing right now, in the most gentle way, of course. Forward it to them and say, hey, let's have coffee. Let's talk this through. Where do I feel like things aren't aligning right now? Because I'm just accelerating, because it's my nature. Share this with them. Until next time, encouragers, we've got this because He's got us. If this podcast has encouraged you or helped you in any way, I'd be so grateful if you'd subscribe and leave a 5-star review. It truly helps more women find these conversations. And if you're listening thinking, I don't need more motivation, I need someone to help me figure out my actual life, that's exactly what I do. Through Encourager Academy and one-on-one coaching, I help women build personalized systems for their home, work, and life rhythms. No cookie-cutter routines, but structures that fit your unique personality, your season, and your capacity. You can explore the Academy or book a free discovery call at theencouragerpodcast.com. Let's take your next small step forward together.